Good morning. So the PlayStation's already been released in the States and Australia and New Zealand and Japan and various other places, while in the UK and the rest of Europe, we're going to be waiting, till a bit later in the week. And I've been following the PlayStation and looking into various options it offers, and I have to be honest, I'm pretty excited for it. Nevertheless, there are some things about it that seem to be missing, and I want to talk about those today. Now, when I actually sat down to look at this, I was expecting to find a couple of things to gripe about, and there are a couple of things to gripe about with the Xbox as well, and I'm going to be making a video talking about the Xbox probably later today, so look out for that one. What I wasn't expecting, though, was a long list of features and functionality that either the PlayStation 5 will never have, or that Sony has touted, but which won't be there on day one, or aren't there on day one if you've already got it. I also have to make it clear that some of these features are features that were only ever promised by Microsoft for the Series X and S, but they are features that I believe the PlayStation 5 could benefit from, and I would like to see on the PlayStation 5. And look, I haven't got any doubt at all that the PlayStation 5 is going to be a great console, but I have to call it as I see it, and as it stands, the PlayStation 5 looks a little anemic when compared to the competition, especially in the face of some of the bold claims that PlayStation have made as regards load times, audio, and so on and so forth. First off, we have the fact that the PlayStation 5 can't store PlayStation 5 games on an external USB drive. So if you run out of room, you're going to have to delete games to make room for new ones. Now, this could become very irritating very quickly, especially when you consider that the available space on the PlayStation 5's internal SSD only amounts to 667 gigabytes. And that's out of a total of 825 gigabytes. And this becomes even more of a problem when you factor in that the add-on NVMe Gen 4 drives will be both expensive at around about £200 for 1 terabyte, and unavailable at launch due to the fact that the drive will have to be ratified by Sony to make sure that they're fast enough to work with the PlayStation 5. In fact, Sony have actually confirmed that the NVMe slot on the PlayStation 5 will be disabled at launch. So if you put an NVMe drive into the slot on the PlayStation 5, you'll get an error message telling you to take it out. and that means you're going to be running out of space very, very quickly. And look, while I'm not keen on the proprietary nature of the Xbox Series X and S solution, at least that means we know what to buy. Not to mention the fact that they're already out there in the shops, so you can go and buy one today. Obviously, this is an issue that's going to go away with time, but for now, if you buy a PlayStation 5, you're stuck with a minuscule amount of space and no way to increase it, other than for PlayStation 4 games, which you can run off a USB drive. If you're playing a lot of PlayStation 5 games, good luck with that one. And I'm going to find myself in that boat later on in the week when, hopefully, my PlayStation 5 arrives. But then, once you get over the lack of space, you're going to find that the speed of the SSD hasn't been fully utilised. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the Xbox Series consoles have a quick resume feature that's been rightly praised, though it isn't without some of its own problems, and I'll discuss that in another video. The PlayStation 5 has nothing of the sort, though. As an article in GameSpot put it, if you were hoping the NVMe SSD that the PlayStation 5 is equipped with would allow for something similar, you're out of luck. Quick resume doesn't exist on the PlayStation 5, at least at launch. Now, Xbox have been working on this idea for a long time, and it's no surprise that they're far ahead of Sony in this area. If you've ever tried picking up from where you left off on another console, you'll know it's far easier to do with the Xbox than with the PlayStation. And Quick Resume appears to be built on this technology. The fact that Sony can't manage seamless saves using the cloud should have given us fair warning, and until they can sort out their save infrastructure, we may not see a quick resume feature, ever. And it'll be interesting to see if Xbox's quick resume feature will still work when offline, because, that's an issue that we've seen before with this idea of always online. And it's something I haven't tested yet on the Xbox, but I suspect the answer to that question will be a hard no. But I will look at it as soon as I can. Maybe always online isn't such a bad thing after all, though. If it gives us these options. Of course, the fast SSD on the PlayStation 5 means that you can get into your games quickly, but they won't just load up from where you left off. So Xbox will be quicker to get you into your games. For now, at least. As I say, they may implement something like this down the line, but I wouldn't hold your breath. But while we're talking about load times, it's interesting to note that several websites are reporting that the Xbox Series X actually loads games faster than the PlayStation 5 from cold, that is, without quick resume. And some of these games are games like Red Dead Redemption 2, Final Fantasy 15, Destiny 2, Monster Hunter World, and Arkham Knight. Now, these you'll probably have noticed are all backwards compatible games, and as several commentators have said, this could change once we see games developed specifically for the PlayStation 5. But again, as it stands, the much touted advantage that the PlayStation 5 supposedly has over the Xbox Series X or S hasn't actually transpired. And neither has VRR or variable refresh rate or even 8K. In an article for Eurogamer, Digital Foundry's Richard Ledbetter said this: "Beyond limited access to a display's 120Hz features, there is no sign whatsoever that variable refresh rate, VRR, is supported on PlayStation 5 right now, and that's a real shame. This is more of an academic point, but the PlayStation 5's packaging also moots 8K display functionality. Now, as far as I'm concerned, 8K is a nonsense for this generation of consoles, and it'll be a nonsense for a long time yet. The only way we'll be seeing 8K on the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X is if somebody makes a version of noughts and crosses, or tic-tac-toe as the Americans call it. And even then, it'll have to be in 2D. 8K's years off for the mainstream, and it's hardly worth talking about in relation to gaming consoles. The fact that VRR is notable by its absence on the PlayStation 5 is a little bit more concerning, though. The official PlayStation website lists VRR in the PlayStation 5 specifications, so why is it not there at launch? And will it appear down the line? I suspect it will, but the more pertinent question might be, when can we expect to see it? Variable refresh rates can really help with screen tearing and also help to make a game feel smoother during play. Anyone who's used FreeSync or G-Sync can attest to that. So not having it on a next-gen console, especially when it's been listed as a feature, is, to say the least, a little bit annoying. As I say, I fully expect to see VRR on the PlayStation 5, but these missing options do make you wonder if the PlayStation 5 is actually ready for launch, or whether they rushed it out the door to compete with the Xbox. And when you then hear that the much touted audio features of the PlayStation 5 will also be missing at launch, you start to see a pattern. According to the PlayStation blog, you can, and I quote, experience PlayStation 5's Tempest 3D audio tech with compatible headsets at launch. TV virtual surround sound is coming after launch. Again, this is listed as a feature on the PlayStation blog, and that was back in March. So where's it gone? In all honesty, this isn't a huge deal, and I'm sure that the PlayStation 5's audio will be fine from day one, but it's just another example of features and functionality disappearing from the console after Sony themselves pushed these things as selling points on the PlayStation 5. And there are a couple of other things missing from the console too, though they're not something that was advertised as coming with the PlayStation 5, so we have to give them a bit of slack on that one. The first one is something that I didn't expect from Sony anyway, as it's something that Microsoft seems to have made their own, and that's Auto HDR, or High Dynamic Range. It joins a long list of features which Xbox is adding to older games using machine learning, and if I'm being honest, it's pretty incredible technology. Even if HDR itself can be a bit hit and miss, the idea of adding in HDR to original Xbox games or 360 games is pretty mind-boggling, if I'm being honest. As Tom Morgan of Digital Foundry put it, not only are legacy titles playable, they're enhanced too, with higher resolutions, smoother frame rates, clearer texture filtering, and faster load times. Auto HDR is the latest enhancement, drawing on machine learning algorithm to add HDR to the majority of its back-compat titles on all Xbox systems. And look, as I say, it's pretty incredible to think that old games can be retrofitted with HDR, and this is one area where the Xbox is far ahead of Sony, even while PlayStation 4 backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5's seems to be pretty good in its own right, offering many of the features that we're getting from the Xbox with backwards compatible titles. Whether we ever see Auto HDR on the PlayStation 5, though, is open to debate. And honestly, I doubt it. It's not a deal breaker, though. The other feature that's missing could be more of an issue, and that's 1440p output, or the lack of it. In an article in Games Radar, Ali Jones states, Sony has clarified that the PlayStation 5 will not support 1440p resolution. Speaking to IGN Italy, the outlet says that the new detail was confirmed directly by Sony ahead of the new console's release. Now, I have heard that Sony are looking into adding this option maybe down the line, but there's no confirmation, and, they could be just blowing smoke up our arse for all we know. The fact is, as it stands, there's no 1440p resolution coming from the PlayStation 5, and there's no sign of it ever being added. As Ali Jones himself says, though, this isn't a big deal for a lot of people, as most gamers will be plugging their PlayStation 5s into their shiny new 4K OLED TVs, though not their shiny new home cinema amplifiers, but I'll talk about that in another video. It could be a problem for people who use a monitor, though, and there are probably more of them than you think. I actually have a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One in my office, and though I don't use a 1440p monitor, it is a pretty popular resolution among PC gamers. So if you're a PC gamer and you want to add a PlayStation 5 and you've got a 1440p monitor, good luck with that. My kid has a 1440p monitor, and if he plugged the PlayStation 5 into it, he'd only have to be using it at 1080p. So he's losing out there. I'm honestly not sure why Sony left out this option. And, it would seem to be something that would be easy to implement. The fact that they didn't implement it shows a lack of understanding of many of their own core customers. People want options. And there are people out there who will get a PlayStation 5 for Christmas and discover that they're going to have to run it at 1080p simply because Sony didn't think about who their potential customers are. And, that's just a bad look as far as I'm concerned. And not only will you not be able to play your PlayStation 5 with a 1440p resolution, you may not be able to use it as a streaming machine either, certainly not at launch, and especially if you live in the UK. The Xbox Series consoles don't have a functioning BBC iPlayer app at launch, but the PlayStation 5 manages to lose BBC iPlayer, ITV Hub, All 4, and Now TV, which is a bit of a pain in the butt if you want the PlayStation 5 as your media player as well as your games console. And look, again, it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, and I do expect to see these apps added in later, but it does make you wonder why these apps couldn't have been made available for launch. It's clear that a lot of people like to use their consoles to watch TV, even if they don't like to admit it. And look, if I'm being honest, even the PlayStation 5's UI looks a little bit unfinished, with no option for folders at launch, for instance. And while I'm pleased it outputs at 4K, unlike the 1080p on the Xbox, I'm left feeling a little bit underwhelmed by its apparent lack of functionality, not to mention the apparent overemphasis on trying to make you buy more content, which, to be fair, has been an issue on the Xbox for years now. As I say, the UI and everything else feels a little bit rushed. And when you hear that putting the PlayStation 5 into rest mode while playing Spider-Man Miles Morales crashes the whole system, that idea is only reinforced. All this aside though, I'm genuinely really excited to get to grips with the PlayStation 5. All consoles have teething problems and missing features at launch. It just seems to be the way things are. And early adopters? Well, we've got used to it over the years, haven't we? And if you're not used to it by now, then you better get used to it pretty quickly. The time to start judging the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X consoles for that matter is in a couple of years when the teething problems are ironed out and the developers have got to grips with the tech on offer. For now though, while there are some things that I find a little disappointing about the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, I'll still enjoy them, and after all, that's what it's all about. Whether I can recommend any of you to go out and buy one though is an entirely different matter, and as ever, I would say that the sensible people will wait until there's more games on offer and the teething problems have been ironed out. I never claimed to be sensible though, so as ever, I bought both of them at launch. And as I say, I hope my PlayStation 5 turns up later in the week. But what do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments. And as ever, give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, hit the little bell and all the rest of it. And hopefully we can have a chat in the comments. But in the meantime, I'm going to go and do what I usually do and grab myself a cup of tea. I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.